Chapter 557 to 558. On the Moon. Plop. As soon as the meteor was smashed on the battlefield in the Land of Fire, Toneri collapsed on the ground and heavily gasped for breath. Although Toneri possesses one of the purest Otsutsuki bloodlines and has extremely high talent as well as authority over the giant Tenseigan, he is still an immature kid who has yet to enter his teenage, so dragging a meteorite from all the way in deep outer space to the Earth was still a very difficult task for him. After all, the distance that the meteor had to cover is hundreds of thousands of miles. Just accelerating it and correcting its trajectory during the journey has put a lot of burden on Toneri and emptied his entire chakra reserves. And this is still the situation when the main chakra consumption is that of the giant Tenseigan. If Toneri had relied on his own power, then let alone dragging it all the way towards the Earth, he couldn't even make the meteorite budge slightly. Therefore, Toneri realized just how weak he is at this moment, because if not, then he wouldn't be desperately gasping for breath at this moment. Sure enough, I am still not good enough. After introspection, Toneri stood up on his soft feet and lightly pressed his palm on the giant Tenseigan. Although at this moment he is extremely tired and overwhelmed, he must at least confirm the result of the meteor collision to figure out whether the person who stole Gedo Mazo died in the attack or not. Of course, no one can survive such an attack. That's what Toneri thinks. You must know that the meteorite that fell on the battlefield was an asteroid drifting in outer space. Its toughness, density, as well as rigidity are much, much higher compared to the ordinary piece of rock that is found on the Earth. Moreover, the entire process of the meteor collision was under the control of the giant Tenseigan's chakra, so its power is multiple times higher compared to the artificial meteor fall. As such, there is really no way anyone can survive such an attack. That's what Toneri believes. But there is no harm in confirming. He still wants to be foolproof and verify whether that person is really dead or not. With these intentions, Toneri activated the giant Tenseigan, and his consciousness soon reached the shinobi world on Earth, and more specifically on the battlefield in the Land of Fire. As Toneri looked at the battlefield, the first thing he saw was the mushroom-shaped cloud of dust and smoke that was constantly rising above. The mushroom-shaped cloud not only contained a large amount of dust and ash, but also extremely dense and chaotic chakra waves consisting of rinnegan chakra, Tenseigan chakra, as well as extremely rich natural energy and life force. The combination of these scattered chakra made the center of mushroom-shaped cloud extremely chaotic, filled with stormy winds and raging lightning, thus making it extremely difficult for Toneri to clearly perceive anything inside it. After discovering this situation, Toneri's frowned brows gradually loosened with a relieved expression. Although he doesn't really have much combat experience, this does not hinder his basic judgmental ability in regard to certain things. And given the chaotic situation inside the mushroom-shaped cloud, Toneri didn't really think anyone could have survived the meteor fall. Therefore, it doesn't really matter who stole Gedo Mazo, and what is the cause of the abnormality with the giant Tenseigan on the moon. After being crushed by the meteorite, each and every single one of them must be dead, which means everything is over. In fact, Toneri even felt that the ominous Gedo Mazo might have also been crushed by the meteorite and permanently destroyed. So the Otsutsuki clan would no longer have to be shameful for not being able to fulfill their responsibility of guarding the Gedo Mazo, and the threat of Jubi will also come to an end. With this, I hope that the people of the shinobi world will learn a lesson and not use chakra for creating more wars, muttered Toneri, and decided to withdraw his consciousness from the shinobi world. Roar! And just as Toneri was about to do so, suddenly, a breathtaking roar came from the center of the mushroom-shaped cloud and resounded all over the battlefield. What? Toneri exclaimed in surprise, shock, and doubt. Immediately afterwards, the mushroom-shaped cloud started to slowly disperse under the storm caused by the roar and revealed a hideous and terrifying head with 9 eye sockets. The demonic statue of the outer path? How could it still be, okay? Toneri immediately recognized the statue and was surprised to find that even after being smashed in the head by the meteorite, it was not destroyed at all, which made Toneri extremely shocked. But before Toneri could get any more answers, he keenly felt a force on the battlefield trying to perceive him. Upon feeling someone trying to perceive him, Toneri was extremely decisive, and without any hesitation, he withdrew his consciousness out of the giant Tenseigan and cut off all the connection between the moon and the earth. And that's not it. He even activated several defensive barriers on the moon that would prevent anyone from trying to invade here. After finishing this series of tasks in one breath, Toneri again collapsed on the floor and faintly breathed a relieved sigh. The experience just a few moments ago was really shocking for him. Not only were the people of the shinobi world able to resist and survive the meteorite fall, they still had enough chakra and energy left to be able to perceive him, the perpetrator, who is present hundreds of thousands of miles away from them. This is too scary. What the elder said is indeed correct. He has not yet arrived, so we can never be too careful or hasty with the shinobi world. No matter what path I choose, I need to have the corresponding strength to follow that path, muttered Toneri in understanding. After learning this lesson, Toneri also realized why the ancestors haven't dealt with the shinobi world yet, and why they haven't taken back Gedo Mazo yet. Previously, the ignorantly innocent and arrogantly proud Toneri didn't understand the caution of the elders, but now he finally understood why the elders have been so cautious with the matters of the shinobi world, despite having the giant Tenseigan with them. Only when you awaken the Tenseigan will you be able to exert the true power of Hamura's Tenseigan. These were the words of the elders before their death, and now Toneri has carved them into his brain. The main reason why these Otsutsuki clansmen of the moon are able to freely control the giant Tenseigan is that the giant Tenseigan mainly constitutes tens of thousands of Byakugan of their ancestors. This blood connection is what allows them to control the energy vessel. However, the power gap between a single individual and the giant Tenseigan that contains the chakra of tens of thousands of people is still too great. As such, even if the Otsutsuki clansmen of the moon have an innate control over the giant Tenseigan, exerting its true power is still very difficult and burdensome for them. The same is the case that happened now. Although Toneri was able to drag a large meteorite from all the way in outer space to the battlefield in the land of fire on the earth, doing so was extremely burdensome for him and emptied his entire chakra reserves. Being able to do this is already the upper limit of the Otsutsuki clansmen on the moon. Therefore, the elders have been very cautious. The elders understood their limits fairly well and acted within them, lest they mistakenly provoke an overly powerful enemy and end up suffering annihilation. After all, even if they have the giant Tenseigan, they are not fully confident in their ability to be able to defeat the likes of the gods of shinobi. As such, they patiently bid their time and patiently waited for a better opportunity and placed all their hopes on the young to do the things they have been unable to do. In their eyes, perhaps only Toneri has the ability to complete Hamura's decree of purifying the failed shinobi world of Rakudo Sennin. And Toneri also understood this, murmured to himself in a distracted tone. I need to awaken the Tenseigan to fully use the power of Hamura's eyes. But how do I awaken the Tenseigan? The young Toneri is obviously unaware of how to awaken the Tenseigan, and neither his father nor the elders of the Otsutsuki clan on the moon told him how to awaken the Tenseigan. The reason why they didn't tell him is that they, themselves, are unaware. And this is also reasonable because if they were aware, then they would have long since stolen a pair of Byakugan from the Hyuga clan on the earth and awakened the Tenseigan by now. But Toneri needs the Tenseigan to exert the power of the giant Tenseigan, so after thinking a little, he muttered, Perhaps I need to study the history of our clan. Maybe I will be able to find something from there. On the battlefield in the shinobi world, crack, crack, crack. Not long after Toneri cut off the giant Tenseigan's connection with the shinobi world, the sound of the spherical shell made up of the truth-seeking orbs sounded in Yama's ears. His previous speculations were indeed correct. Not long after the meteorite collided on the battlefield, the connection between the giant Tenseigan on the moon and the shinobi world was cut off. In fact, not only was the connection cut off, but several layers of the barrier were also deployed, because of which Yama can no longer perceive the existence or chakra of the giant Tenseigan. After losing the chakra support of the giant Tenseigan, Yama's strength decreased. Fortunately enough, Nagato lived up to Yama's expectations. Not only did he slow down the meteorite, he even offset most of the damage caused by the meteorite. This made it possible for Yama and the mainland to easily survive this calamitic situation with just some shaking and small-scale damage, respectively. Crack, crack, ka-cha, shatter. It didn't take long for the cracks to spread all over the spherical shell as it started shattering into dust and disappearing into the air. The truth-seeking orb was greatly damaged by the meteorite, and not that the resonant connection with the giant Tenseigan on the moon is cut off, so Yama could no longer maintain the truth-seeking orb. As such, he didn't insist on it and let it crumble to dust. With the protection of the truth-seeking orb gone, Yama's figure appeared on the battlefield out in the open, and he looked at the figure of the bloody and scrawny Nagato not far away. Unbelievable. Not only did Nagato actually manage to offset most of the momentum of the falling meteorite, he even managed to save Konan from being crushed by the meteorite. At the same time, managed to survive himself. This is simply unbelievable, thought Yama with an unhappy expression as he looked at the scrawny and bloody Nagato not far away. Almost everything went according to his plan and did not deviate much from his expectations. But this doesn't make Yama happy at all. On the contrary, Yama is unhappy, very angry, and cursing himself for being correct this time, because this only makes the situation worse. Although on the surface it seems as if Yama not only single-handedly faced all the 4 core members of the Akatsuki organization at once, but even managed to overwhelm them without much difficulty as a result, proving himself to be an invincible existence and making them appear as extremely vulnerable and helpless against him. Yama himself is extremely clear that in reality, that's not the case at all. In reality, whatever power Yama showed, it was all thanks to the chakra of the giant Tenseigan on the moon, and now that the connection with the giant Tenseigan has been cut off, Yama himself doesn't retain much chakra to be able to continue the same level of invincible offensive. Yama knows that without any support from either the giant Tenseigan on the moon or from Toyotama Ryumyaku, he is unable to maintain and control too many truth-seeking orbs at once. And considering the fact, 3 of his truth-seeking orbs are being used to constantly maintain the seal of the 3 limbo clones of Nagato that he sealed, not long Yama doesn't really have many options left with him at this moment. Maintaining those seals on the limbo clones to stop them from interfering in the battle is rapidly consuming chakra out of him. As such, even though Yama has such a nice opportunity in front of him, with Nagato being in such an injured and sorry state and all, he is still not certain whether he will be able to successfully kill off Nagato because the damn Gedo Mazo is still connected to him and rapidly supplying him with life force. And while Nagato is being given life force by Gedo Mazo, there are still no signs of Senjutsu chakra appearing in Yama's body that was supposed to have come by now, which has further delayed him. This delay has disrupted his plans of killing Nagato, as his current chakra reserves are simply unable to support him in doing so. With Yama's current chakra reserves, even maintaining those seals and the Tenseigan chakra mode is a difficult task for him, much less attacking Nagato with Gedo Mazo on his side, which is a complete suicide move in his opinion. Understanding this full well, Yama dare not be so bold as before and openly attack Nagato. Actually, Yama had originally planned to force Nagato to give it his all to resist the meteorite in order to protect Konan, and wanted to take advantage of it to reap his life. But the delay in the arrival of the Senjutsu chakra from his shadow clone and the damn existence of the Gedomazo has disrupted all his plans, and again made him realize that Nagato is really one of the children of the prophecy. Killing him won't be easy unless Nagato willingly sacrifices his life. I didn't expect that the gap between our individual strengths would be widened to such a degree in just a few months. Yama muttered silently as he looked at the opposite Nagato, who was removing the black receiver from Konan's body. Puff. After removing the last black receiver from Konan's body, Nagato coughed a mouthful of blood. His figure staggered slightly and almost fell to the ground. The bloody and injured Konan, who was protected by Nagato all this time, resisted the pain brought by her injuries and quickly got up to support Nagato. The current Konan has no words left to say. After all, the reason why Nagato is in such a sorry state is primarily her, therefore she can only bite her lip in frustration at her uselessness, let the tears stream down her face in guilt and sadness, but dare not mutter a single word to be a distraction in the face of Yama, and only supported Nagato to the best of her abilities, which is the only thing she can do at this point. Cough, cough! Nagato coughed up blood, then wiped the corner of his mouth with his right hand while looking at the figure of Yama not far away with his bulging eyes. Following Nagato's gaze, Konan too looked at the figure of Yama on the opposite and said while gritting her teeth in anger, "Nagato, you retreat! I will try to draw away his attention to cover up for you. I am not sure for how long I will be able to hold it. I think it should be possible to distract him for a few seconds. But you needn't worry. I have placed billions of exploding tags on the battlefield. The big deal is that I will die together with him. But you must survive, Nagato. For only you can bring peace to the world." Although Konan said so, in her heart she is extremely clear that her exploding tags are completely useless on Yama, no matter how many billions of them there are. Therefore, she knows that her intention of distracting Yama is just a suicide move, but this is the only thing she can do. If she can trade her life in exchange for bringing an opportunity for Nagato to retreat, then she would do so without any hesitation. Ha 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 ha. Hearing Konan's words, Yama chuckled disdainfully. Of course, it's not that Yama was looking down on Konan's so-called billions of explosive tags or her determination to sacrifice herself. It's just that he is trying to intimidate the two of them to make sure that they don't start making reckless moves against him out of desperation, because that would be very dangerous for the current Yama. Yama's current intention is very simple. He just wants to delay some time to make sure that Senjutsu chakra molded by his shadow clone arrives in his body. Of course, Yama has to make sure that Nagato and Konan don't figure out Yama's true intentions, therefore the disdainful laugh. This is not the first time he has been in such a dilemma, so he has enough experience on how to deal with it and knows how to play it cleverly to delay some time. Of course, while delaying time and vigilantly watching Nagato, Yama also tried to perceive his surroundings in order to find the positions of Madara, in order to be prepared to guard against his sneak attacks. Yama is very clear that almost everyone on this battlefield, including him, has suffered some sort of injury because of the meteorite fall just now. But there is just one exception to this, and this exception is without a doubt Madara because of his bug-type Mangekyu Sharingan Dojutsu, Kamui. Because of his Kamui, Madara is capable of making himself intangible, so Yama knows that there is no way the meteorite fall would have had any impact on him. After all, Madara was completely unaffected even by Deidara's C0 suicide bomb, which creates a blast range of more than 10 kilometers radius, so obviously, Madara won't suffer here either. As such, Madara, who can completely ignore these types of attacks, has naturally become the one most threatening to the current Yama. After all, aside from his intangibility, Madara is also capable of using long-range Kamui attacks to directly shred anything with just a single glance at his target, which is the most dangerous and can bypass all sorts of defense. Therefore, Yama must remain vigilant against Madara and his Kamui at any cost. And while Yama was searching for Madara, Nagato waved his hand towards Konan and said without moving his gaze away from Yama, "No. The one who should retreat is you. As for me, I haven't lost yet. I still have some tricks up my sleeve. As such, I can defeat him just fine." Although his figure is already skinny and bony, his chest is heavily gasping for breath, heaving up and down as if he will suffocate any moment. Nagato still had the determination to fight to the death against Yama, and the war intention radiating from his eyes have not weakened in the slightest. Unnecessary emotions such as surprise, hesitation, doubts, disbelief, and anger that were interfering and clouding his judgment until a while ago because of the sudden appearance of the meteorite have completely disappeared, and all that's left now is the intention to kill or be killed. Perceiving Nagato's intentions, the reflaring of his chakra that he sucked out of the Gedomazo, and the sudden appearance of a vague shadow next to him, Kuroto's face under the Yama mask turned darker. The vague shadow that appeared next to Nagato is obviously his fourth Limbo clone. Earlier, Yama had destroyed it using the Golden Wheel reincarnation explosion, but it seems that more than enough time has passed since then, and Nagato has managed to bring it out again using the chakra he sucked out of the Gedomazo. The appearance of the fourth Limbo clone beside Nagato only made the situation worse, because now Yama is not even certain if he can successfully seal the fourth Limbo clone while guarding against the real Nagato, Madara, Konan, Zetsu, and Tobi at the same time. In fact, given the current situation and the sudden turn of events, the probability that Yama might be the one who ends up dying at the end of this battle has also increased exponentially, which has also made him somewhat afraid to make a move. This also made Yama sigh at Nagato's body. The pseudo-sage physique that Nagato has gained after the transplantation of Hashirama cells is extremely terrifying with exaggerated battery life, extremely high chakra reserves, extremely fast charging speed, extremely fast chakra recovery speed, and the most terrifying power bank, Gedomazo, that can continue to provide him with the needed charging anytime and anywhere. While Yama was sighing in helplessness, suddenly, a spiraling whirl appeared on Nagato's side, out of which the figure of Madara appeared. Madara, while vigilantly guarding against Yama, grabbed Nagato's shoulder, preventing him from making any reckless attack against Yama. At the same time, Zetsu and Tobi also appeared out of the ground, and while fearfully looking at the figure of Yama standing on the opposite side, both of them persuaded Nagato, "Nagato, retreat!" The appearance of Madara, Zetsu and Tobi loosened Konan's tight nerves, and she sighed in relief and quickly said to Nagato, "Nagato, fighting to the death here is worthless. Have you forgotten Yahiko's last words? How are you going to complete them if you end up dying here?" After hearing Konan's words, and specifically the mention of Yahiko's last words, Nagato sighed and stopped insisting, "All right, retreat." The moment Nagato agreed, Konan spread out her paper wings, lifted off Nagato, and flew far away from Yama, leaving behind Madara, Zetsu, and Tobi, who stayed here with the intention of covering up Nagato and Konan's retreat. Although they stayed behind to cover up Nagato and Konan's retreat, they were extremely nervous and clenched their hands in sweat. Upon seeing such a sudden change and Nagato's intention of retreating, Yama frowned. Although he is somewhat afraid of the current Nagato, Yama didn't want to just let all of the members of the Akatsuki organization retreat so easily. So, without caring about whether the Senjutsu chakra in his body had arrived or not, Yama rushed forward and shouted, "You—" But before Yama could either finish his words or cover even half the distance to get closer to any of the Akatsuki members, The faces of Konan and Nagato in the distance turned fearful, and fearing that Yama will catch up to them, Nagato immediately shouted, "Reverse summoning jutsu!" And then the very next instant, both he and Konan disappeared into poofs of white smoke. At the same time, Zetsu, Tobi, and Madara's expressions were also fearful, and noting that both Nagato and Konan had disappeared, they did not dare stay here an instant longer and disappeared from the battlefield using their individual means of Kamui and Mayfly technique. Phew. At this moment, a gentle breeze blew, and Yama, who was the only person left on the battlefield, blinked his eyes in a daze and muttered in wonder, "Has my deterrence already reached such a high level?"